Luigi's Mansion 3 was recently released for the Switch, and it's pretty much my favorite game that's been released for the Switch so far. Now, I could take the easy route and just do a plain old review of it, but that's too easy. Plus, I'm pretty sure literally every other relevant YouTuber on this planet is already doing that. So instead, I thought it'd be interesting to make Luigi's Mansion 3 and Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon touch tips and figure out who's bigger in their pants. I'm not including the first game since I actually haven't played it yet. Regardless, this is especially a good idea when you take into consideration that these games were both developed by Next Level Games, so let's see what they've improved on ever since Dark Moon. So let's get started with probably my favorite thing about Luigi's Mansion 3, the combat. The combat in Luigi's Mansion 3 has been fleshed out quite a bit with new gadgets and moves that can be used in order to capture Ghost. Luigi is equipped with the new Poltergust G00, a device that allows for Luigi to capture Ghost through a variety of new methods. You could of course just suck them up by holding the left joystick back, but if you want to get it done in a timely manner and even deal a little damage to surrounding Ghost, you could use a slam attack as well. This slam attack will slam Ghost into the floor, and if another Ghost is in the way, well, then it will obviously hit them too. You're also equipped with an ability called the Suction Shot, which is a plunger that you fire at various surfaces in order to either open them or swing them around. This ability can be used in order to solve puzzles, but also disarm enemies that have some sort of shield or armor that prevents them from being flash. You also have a Burst, which can be used to blow away enemies from your general area, and even sometimes jump over or move obstacles. The final thing is your new partner Gooigi, which is a personified gooey mold of Luigi that can do pretty much anything Luigi does. Gooigi can be used as an extra hand to clear off bats and help solve puzzles most of the time, but he can also be used so that a second player can play. Gooigi, however, will be destroyed when he comes into contact with water, heat, or pretty much anything that squishes him or takes away his 25 health. The only other things to take note of are the strobe bulb and the dark light, but I'm pretty sure you're well aware of what they do. So yeah, lots of improvements compared to Dark Moon's more simplistic combat, which featured being able to press A at certain intervals and dealing a chunk of damage to enemies along with the strobe bulb and the dark light device. You also had the ability to dodge enemies, but at the cost of the charge you built up while capturing a Ghost. While we're on the subject of the combat, let's talk about the controls. This is one of the things that Dark Moon excels at, but then again it was made for the 3DS, which doesn't have two joysticks that are each on a detachable controller. Controllers that sometimes make gameplay a little clunky, mind you. Allow for me to give a quick rundown of the controls of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. X and B are used to look up and down, although sometimes you could just tilt the 3DS, Y is the dark light device, and A is the strobe bulb. Pretty simple and not that complicated. However, in Luigi's Mansion 3, they mapped the plunger shot to Y, where the dark light should be. They mapped X to be the dark light, which was confusing when I was switching between these two games for this video. A is still the strobe bulb and is also used to slam the Ghost, and B is used to turn a different direction. So yeah, Luigi's Mansion 3 is a bit inconsistent and relies a bit more on motion controls. Why? So now let's talk about how you go and explore in these games. In Luigi's Mansion 3 you have a lot more freedom. You do have a couple of missions to complete in order to progress the story, but after those first few missions you have a lot more freedom to do as you please. The only thing that holds you back is the amount of buttons you have, concerning you obviously can't do much if you don't have that many buttons. Even if you're just going back to a previous floor to collect all the gems or capture its booze, sometimes more ghosts will appear that you can fight so that your trip isn't boring and repetitive. In Dark Moon, however, you are confined to exploring the mansions through various missions, and sometimes if you try and go off and explore something else, the game will prevent you from going through whatever door you were about to go through so that you can focus on the mission. It's not like you're completely restricted, however, and aren't allowed to backtrack and explore some of the rooms to get extra loot, but exploration in Dark Moon is a lot more restricted than it is in 3. Now I want to talk about the design of these games, but I don't just simply mean the graphics. I will say that it is a bit surprising that Next Level Games put a lot more care into how the game looks, and Luigi's Mansion 3 is the superior game concerning looks overall. What I mean, however, is more about the shapes and personalities of the enemies, the design of the rooms, and even the animations that play, whether it's cutscenes or something minuscule yet still noticeable. In Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, enemies had a very round and simplistic design. That's not to say that they had no details that separated one ghost from another, because that would be silly. It's understandable that maybe Nintendo wanted a slicker, more modern design for the ghost, but it honestly seems basic and bland compared to Luigi's Mansion 3. As I said, there are some clear differences such as body type and color, but when you look at the ghost of Luigi's Mansion 3, you can see that there are much better designs with more personality and thought in them. For instance, take the slammer from Dark Moon and compare it to the hammer from Luigi's Mansion 3. Both enemies are red and are definitely brutish and dumb, as seen by their angry expressions and big fist, but I feel like Luigi's Mansion 3 helps show these quirks better by giving the hammer a square design, as it gives a more rigid and rough appearance. They also made it a much larger enemy in order to show the kind of strength it possesses. There's also some more defined details, such as its chin and big brow. Similarly, the sneaker versus the slinker. The sneaker is a bright pink and does have a sleek top to show that it's keen in how it attacks. The slinker, however, has some more defined features. It's more of a dark purple, which gives off that mysterious vibe more in my opinion, and has its shoulders raised to make it more creepy when it tries reaching for you. Speaking of reaching, it will begin to claw at the floor when it tries to escape from your grasp, which I think is a nice bit of detail. Now I'd also like to talk about the animations of this game. Luigi himself has been given so much more personality by some simple animations alone, such as when you're using the strobe bulb or when you're shooting the plunger. The cutscenes also make him look more lively and expressive. Now, Dark Moon also made Luigi more expressive. I mean, both of these games are improvements off of the original in their own way. Of course, since Luigi's Mansion 3 is the sequel to the sequel, it definitely does this much better. Also, the poltergust does this little thing, depending on whether you're sucking things in or blowing them away, and it's really neat. Now, let's talk about money. See, like his brother, Luigi is able to make a lot of money in these games. However, what is he able to do with his riches exactly? Well, in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, you would have to collect a certain amount of money in order to receive a new upgrade. These upgrades add more power to your charge meter and allow for you to use the Dark Light device longer. Pretty useful stuff. In Luigi's Mansion 3, however, you can buy gold bones and boo/gem finders. That's it. I mean, I guess at least it's not nothing, but I feel like maybe it would have meant a little more if they added those upgrades back in. So let's talk about the bosses of these games. One thing to note is that there was technically only one boss that was holding the Dark Moon pieces. It just seems like it was different because they themed that specific Possessor Ghost's fight based on its surrounding area. There are also slight physical changes, but they're so minor I completely forgot that they were there. The only boss in Dark Moon that actually seemed to have any sort of personality was the three sisters. Their design, health, and sounds all work together to actually differentiate the sisters from one another. Other than that, the bosses of Luigi's Mansion 3 are much better in the fact that they have their own personalities and characteristics. The attacks of each boss are based around whatever they're themed by, like we have a boss themed around Mozart that possesses a piano. I also like how very early in the game we did get a super easy and simplistic boss that I didn't realize even was a boss until I checked the vault and saw him among the others. But now we step away from the normal bosses and talk about the boss of all bosses, King Boo. So it's actually really weird how King Boo compares between these two games. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon doesn't really change his personality that much, but I still enjoyed the fight. Yet Luigi's Mansion 3 gives him more personality, but I didn't really like his fight that much. In Dark Moon, King Boo is still the always smiling, painting, crazed maniac he is, yet he has such an interesting boss fight. The fight switches between this hallway segment and this platform where you actually fight King Boo. The hallway segment is you running away from King Boo and avoiding a variety of obstacles that are trying to prevent you from running. You have these side tables that sometimes extend their drawers, you have these patches of snow that slow you down, you have this slippery ice/snow area that's harder to navigate through. There's a variety of things that keep it interesting. The platform area is where you actually fight King Boo, and there's a couple of interesting attacks there too. The King Boo fight in Luigi's Mansion 3 takes place on the same boring rooftop with some really boring attacks. Who would have thought developing a personality would make you weaker and less interesting? You also can't tell which King Boo is the real one once he clones himself. There is literally no indication as to which one is the real one, which makes this fight more difficult, since towards the end there's a timer. I think the timer is an interesting addition that could work in the final fight, although number one, this isn't used in any other boss fight, and number two, it sucks how it's currently implemented. The only thing that's interesting about this fight is that you have to use Luigi, which now that I realize the fight is boring because you don't have to use any of your other skills except Luigi, unlike literally any other fight up to this point. It requires dodging, luck, and Luigi in order to defeat King Boo in this game. So yeah, in the end, Luigi's Mansion 3 definitely seems to have more personality and is just better overall. I think what's great about Luigi's Mansion 3 is that it shows next level games really do care about Luigi's Mansion as a concept, and they really outdid themselves with this game. I believe that's all the things Luigi's Mansion 3 improved on from Dark Moon. What did you think about Luigi's Mansion 3? Be sure to let me know in the comments. I'd also appreciate if you would like this video and subscribe so that you can get notifications for some of my upcoming videos. That's about all I have to say. See you in the next one.